In today's episode of Today in World War II, March 25th, the Swiss warn Norway that Germany is going to invade. Two British destroyers are sunk off of Malta by the Luftwaffe. A Japanese reconnaissance flight over Guadalcanal finds a very interesting discovery. The RAF loses a poop load of aircraft against Berlin. And finally, the United States First Army finally breaks out of the Remagen bridgehead into Germany. Let's get started. All right, so on today's date, March 25th, 1940, even the Swiss, the neutral Swiss, their intelligence agency warned Norway that the Germans were going to invade. It was just days away from this happening, but Norway, surprise, surprise, chose to ignore the warning. But you can kind of see why they would ignore this warning because they were neutral, right? Norway was neutral. Surely Hitler would honor their neutrality, right? They did nothing against the Germans. Why would they need to be on guard? Why would they need to have their army on alert? That could provoke the Germans. We must be neutral and not provoke them. Well, we'll see how that happens, okay? In today's world, even back then as well, neutrality means nothing. The only thing that matters, unfortunately, to save your country from an attack by an aggressor nation, a nation that's stronger than you, is either massive conventional defenses and nuclear weapons. What's happened here, just to draw a parallel, in Ukraine, the Ukrainians were not given enough arms to win. So they forced Ukrainians to give away their nuclear weapons back in the early 90s. The Russians felt like they could invade and conquer. I don't know if that would have happened if they had kept their nuclear weapons. What's going to happen is we're going to see a huge boom in nuclear proliferation because of that. All right. On March 25th, 1943, a Japanese reconnaissance fighter flew over Henderson Field in Guadalcanal. What did they discover? About 300 Allied aircraft at the base. What's so hilarious about this for me is that it wasn't just a few days ago, I think, in our video chronicle here, where the Japanese High Command had decided that they were going to go on the defensive. That's kind of like a woman who's pregnant on her third month telling her husband, honey, I think we should have a baby. That's already happened, right? The Japanese High Command didn't decide that they were going to go on the defensive. The combined might of the U.S. Marines, the Army, the Navy, and the Air Arms, the Army Air Corps, the Navy Air Arms, they put the Japanese on the defensive. I just thought that was just so funny. Japanese arrogance still tickles me sometimes when you read about what happened later in all the history books that had to do with the Japanese side of the war, just how clueless their high command was. If it wasn't for just how unprepared the Western, allies were at the beginning of the war, they wouldn't have gotten anywhere. They were very lucky the first 6 months of the war. But then, like I said, once they came up against the A team, the U.S. Navy and the Marines, it was all over for them. Even though they were brave, their tactics were terrible. They rode their good soldiers and pilots and ships until they got destroyed. Whereas we husbanded our really good resources, right? We didn't throw people away and expect them to die for Roosevelt. Okay. On March 25th, 1944, eight RAF aircraft bombed Berlin. They paid a heavy price. 122 aircraft were lost. When you consider there was like 7 to 8 to 10 crew on each plane, you can do the math. That was a significant loss because these air crews, they're either dead or they're captured, but they're gone. As far as future raids, they're gone. So that was a heavy price to pay. But Berlin was one of the most heaviest, what was that? It was defended probably better than any German city for obvious reasons. It was the capital. Anti-aircraft, the Germans really had good night fighters. The Ju-88, they converted, it was a bomber, twin engine bomber, they converted into the night fighter. They had onboard radar. So they took their toll. But again, The problem that Axis powers had, Italy, Germany, and the Japanese, was that they could not outproduce the Allies. And this is a war of logistics, and they lost bad. Finally, on March 25th, 1945, the United States First Army, which had the lucky break that the Remagen Bridge, the railroad bridge over the Rhine, was intact. The Germans had tried to blow it up, but they were unsuccessful, even though the bridge later was damaged enough to where it was swept away, taking with it 35 American engineers. But still, enough of the First Army got over. They established a bridgehead on today's date. They were able to break out and start moving forward into Germany proper. The only negative thing was it was the worst place for a bridge to be captured intact because of the geography. It was very hilly territory. It wasn't conducive for quick movement of armor. But they still did. It delayed him a couple of weeks. Would have been much better if Montgomery had the lucky break because that was the Ruhr, and there was really not much stopping them there. But you take what you get, right? Just like you took what you got by watching this video. I appreciate it. I can't wait to show you another one tomorrow.